Hello guys, today I want to show you how to service an Rolex 3135. Obviously you see it's a new movement. I bought it online. It's not an authentic one, but I think you can see how to disassemble a watch because the parts are a copy, one-to-one copy from the original. So now here we go. First I disassemble the automatic mechanism. There are two screws, and yes, when I put these two screws out, you can lift the automatic mechanism up and put it aside. Now you see that I'm undoing these two screws, but for this step this is not necessary because these two screws are holding the bridge for the wheels, and yes, that's not necessary for this step right now, because for the automatic mechanism on top of the watch there are only these two screws that I undo a few seconds ago. So in the next step you see that I put out the automatic movement mechanism, sorry, and now you see the beautiful movement. I think the finish from the watch is perfect, and in the next steps you see that the build quality from the movement it's very good. Sometimes you see that some parts are, I don't know how to say it correctly, but I think you can say it's overdue. Sometimes you didn't need these parts so robust, but Rolex did it anyways, and that's why this movement is perfect. And I think Rolex has this movement for around, like, I don't know, maybe 30 years. I think 2022 or 21 they did the 32 35, but you can correct me in the comments. But it has always a reason for this, because Rolex, when it has not not the best movement, they don't don't produce it for 30 years. So now you can see I put the bridge from the wheels off, and the second and the minute and the hour wheel I put also aside. In the next step I put out the anchor wheel. In the next step you will see that I undo the screws. The screws hold the spring house. In the spring house there is the power for the watch that it will keep running for, I think for the Rolex 3135 it's 60 or 80 hours, but you can correct me in the comments. And in the next step you see that I undo these two screws to put out or to put out the bridge that sits on top of the spring housing, and the bridge is holding the spring housing. And now you will see last screw, and it's a little bit stiff because the watch wasn't apart. Now it's a fresh movement. Then sometimes it's a little bit tricky to put out these parts. So, and there it is, the spring housing. And you see under the housing there's a point where the pin should sit, and you see there's a ruby. Normally there isn't a ruby for like cheaper watches, but to reduce the friction, Rolex put ruby for this. That's why the 3135 is a very robust movement, because some parts didn't need to be so robust, but Rolex does it or did it anyways. So you see there is other bracket that is holding the mechanism to stop the watch from working when you set the time. This is a little, I like to say it, a little finger that it sits on the plate, and when you push out the crown, the finger is pushed forward, and then it holds the balance wheel, and then the watch is stopping. So you see the next step there was the clutch, and the clutch is for separate if you want to wind the watch or set the time, or in this case you can also set the date in, or you can quick set the date. So now I'm losing these two screws. There underneath these two screws there is a bracket, and now you see that I'm undo these two screws and put out the bracket, and underneath the bracket there is the hole for the tube, and on this tube there are sitting the I think it must be the minute hand from the watch. So in the next step I will turn around the movement to go on the date side from the watch. Therefore I need to put out the hands from the watch. Therefore I have these two tools, and with these two tools you can lift up the little tiny watch hands from the watch. Normally I use the foil to not destroy these two hands, but this time I didn't need these two hands. I'm building a watch from this movement, and as for myself I'm building a watch, and therefore I didn't need these two hands. Now I'm flip the movement again. I don't see it. There was a little tiny bracket to, I think it's for the balance wheel to protect the balance wheel from destroying or damaging. So in the next step, I will undo the balance wheel. It's on, or it's hold on 2 screws. The balance bridge, it calls a butterfly bridge. I think it's better for the watch when the balance wheel has 2 screws to hold it on the movement or watch plate. So now you can see the balance in a better position. I put it on my finger to see it better. And yes, I put it aside. I have a little tiny, yeah, I would say it's a little tiny needle that I'm putting on the balance wheel to hold it and to let it spin freely and don't damage the hairspring, because when the hairspring is a little bit denty, you can throw the balance in the trash, because when there's a little tiny dent, it's destroyed. You can't use it again. So now I put the little anchor aside. You can see a little close up from the anchor. So now I flip the movement again, and I will start with the disassembly from the front side from the watch, from the data side. Sorry, date side. So now when I am putting the date disk aside, I will start to disassemble the front plate from the watch. Underneath this plate there is the adjustment for the time and for the date. So now you can see I'm undoing these 3 screws, and when it's done I lift up the plate, and underneath the plate you can see the adjustments for these 2 types. Sometimes it's a little bit tricky to put up the plate. In this case it was also a little bit tricky. It sits very stiff. So now I put this small foil aside, the hour adjustment and the cannon pinion. I don't have the right tool for that, but because they are very expensive, and I think the tweezer works really well for this type of stuff. And you can comment down below what I need for, or what I use for my watch repairs, what tools I use, and when you like to know that, you can comment it in the comment section, and I will send you some links for my screwdriver, for my tweezers, and for other stuff you like to know, for oils or something else. You can comment it down below in the comment section. And when you like, you can put the video a thumbs up. that will help me a lot of, and yes, that will be very nice for me when I see you like these videos. So in the next step, I put the bracket or these little plates aside. Underneath that there is a little wheel and a much smaller wheel. I think you didn't see it right, but there was one. So now in the next step, there's also a little tiny wheel for the slow adjustment from the date, and this is the wheel for the slow adjustment. This wheel will set the date at when it's set perfectly at 12 o'clock midnight. Then it will switch over the date, and therefore is this wheel. Yes, there's a spring to hold it in the right position and do pressure of this small wheel, and you see it's not that easy to take it off, but I managed it to took it off. Sometimes the tweezers are not working, and then there is only one way to flip over the movement and to hope that it comes right off, and at this time it works. And now the movement is disassembled. So in the next step you will see the assembly from the watch. I don't clean it because it, like I said, it was a new movement, and that's why I disassembled the watch and assembled it right after that. So now I put on the clutch adjustment and the spring for the clutch. So in the next step I put on this little plate. On that plate I doing after that little tiny wheel. This wheel is for the quick set of the date, and yes, with the quick set of the from the date you can rotate this date disc from the watch. So now I do this little pingy fin on this bracket. This pin is for the crown with the stamp. When you push this thing, the crown and the stamp will come off, or otherwise you can push the stamp and put the you can push this pin and you can put the stamp with the crown inside the watch to wind the watch or set the time or set the date. And to hold this thing there's a little bracket, and this bracket is held with one screw. So now I put on the other bracket. Underneath that the bracket is therefore to hold the clutch and the spring from the clutch. So now I put on these two screws and screw it in, these two things, And when I did this, there's a little tiny finger, I would say, to hold on the actual pin when you what I tell you before that, when you will put out the crown. There's a little finger or spring, you can say, to hold also the or put pressure on the little pin when you put out or put in the stem, that it's holding in the right place. So now you can see I put on this little plate, and underneath that there's a little wheel. This plate is for the quick set of the date. It's held with 2 screws, and I screw it back in. Sometimes it's a little bit tricky to put in these screws, and for that I use my tweezers to hold the actual screw, and then I'm holding the screw and screw it in with my red screwdriver. So now I put on this wheel and the other wheel. Sometimes you see it's a little bit tricky to put it in the right direction. And this little wheel with the, yes, I would like to say it's a star. And the star, it will grab in the date disc, and with this little tiny star, it rotate the date in, or quick set the date. So in the next step I will put on the spring to hold the clutch, and this little clutch, I would say it looks like a leg and a foot from a human, and it's for separating or it's securing the date, and when you rotate the hours in the wrong direction, sometimes when you have a cheap watch, the date runs backwards, and therefore it's this little tiny thing that will prevent it for rotate the date backwards. So in the next step I put on the setting disk to set the date slowly, and around like, or when it's done perfectly, it sets in like 12 p.m. and in cheaper watches it will turn maybe like 2 a.m. or 11 p.m. when it's a cheaper watch. Then the mechanism is not always working perfectly like in this watch. This watch is working perfectly, and the date is set perfectly at midnight, 12 o'clock. So now the date is on, and next to the date you see a little tiny wheel. When I set this little tiny wheel, I go on to the hour wheel, or this time the cannon pinion, and the minute wheel, sorry, the cannon pinion, and the hour wheel. On top of that, it comes this little tiny foil, and this foil is for preventing friction or scratches to the to the part or to the bracket on top of that for the date disk, or that it hold the date disk. So now when I put on this bracket, it sits perfectly, you see, and when it sits perfectly, I put on this 3 little screws. Sometimes it's a little bit tricky to put it on. And yes, when I screw on this 3 screws, when it's done, I make the last step from the date side and set the date or set in the date disk. So now I made a little mistake. I'm lying to you. Sorry, guys. There are 4 screws. You see it. There is the last one, and after that, you can put in the metal disc or the date disc. There's a little tiny pusher. This pusher is holding the also holding the date disc. You see, you push it, or yes, you push that thing, and then you can slide in the date disc. Now there's a little tiny, yes, I would say a little tiny screw, and you can set this little tiny screw, and this screw is for holding the date disk also secure inside the movement. Sorry guys for the noises in the background. There was an ambulance. So now let's go on. I flipped over the movement and I put on this little tiny bracket so that it's held with 2 screws. When I screw these 2 screws in, after that I go on with the powerhouse or with the spring housing. So now I put the bridge over the powerhouse, and this bridge is secure with 2 screws. You see it in the next step when I'm screwing these 2 screws in. But now you can also see the beautiful quality of the watch. These brackets are setting or sits perfectly of the watch. You don't need to push hard it in. It sits really quick in the perfect position, and yes, the pattern of the watch plate is also very beautiful in my opinion. So now I put on this beautiful wheel. Now you see there's the little tiny screw, and the screw holds the wheel from the spring house. The next step, I couldn't film it right, sorry for that, but I put on the or put in the little tiny wheel and the clutch itself, and this is the bracket to hold these 2 parts. And now you see I'm screwing this bracket in with 2 screws. Next time I will film it right, that you can see also this step. So in the next step I put in the crown with the little tiny stamp, and so now in the next step I will put in the anchor wheel, and you see this little tiny gold thing. It was the I like to say the finger, and you see the mechanism works really well because you see it or saw it to yes the or you saw the different positioning of the finger through this little tiny hole. So now you can see that I'm putting on the first wheel, then the center wheel or the wheel for the second hand. This step I does it wrong, but I see it very quickly because the second wheel or second hand wheel uh, should go in first inside and then the second wheel. So now I can put on the this bridge for the wheels, and what I said in the past, these brackets are sit easily and perfectly on the watch. You don't need to wiggle it a lot of. You see maybe 1-2 times, and then the bridge or the bracket sits perfectly in the right position. So in the next step you see I putting on these two screws to or these two screws for holding the bracket, and after that I will check if these wheels are working really well, and yes, you see it works really well. And now here is the last screw for the holding bracket. So when this is done, I check the pressure from the watch. I give it a little tiny push, and you see it moved it really well. It jumps from right to left, and yes, that is a sign that it will run perfectly. So now you saw it a little close up from the watch, and so this is the interesting part from the watch, to put on the balance or the balance wheel. Will it run perfectly? You will see in a few seconds. So a little push and little start, and now you see it runs perfectly. The watch is running. So now I'm putting on these last two screws for the balance wheel, and when this is done, there's only one part that is left, and this is the automatic mechanism. This is the last part to complete this disassembly and assembly from the Rolex 3135 movement. So the last screw is inside the watch, and now I have another little close up for you guys. And like I said, I think it's a very, very beautiful and very clean movement. So this is the last part before the automatic mechanism comes on. So this is the bracket or bumper for the oh this part is, like I said in the past, for to protect the actual balance or the balance wheel for damaging the watch itself. So when the last screw is on the watch, the automatic mechanism is or can coming. So now I put on the automatic mechanism. There's a little close up from the mechanism, and it's a little bit tricky to put it on, but you know, it's a Rolex movement and it comes on easily. Like I said in the past, the movement is built or is very well built, and in this case also it snaps right on the perfect direction, and now you see it sits perfectly. So there are only 2 screws left for the movement, and when these 2 screws are in, the service or the assembly is done for the Rolex 3135 movement. When you have questions or other stuff, you can comment it down below. I would love to read it, your comments. Also, when you have questions for my tools, you can also write it down below. And when you like to see a movement then I service the next time, you can also comment down below. Maybe I will do it. And yes, thank you for watching my video, and when you like, you can give the video a comment or like. That would make me very proud. Thank you for enjoying this video. Bye, see you next time.